I actually went through your training stuff. There's a bunch of training videos you have. So I've gone through intro to planning. Let's see if I can pull some of them up. See what I've gone through. I've gone through the planning and tracking.
Okay.
And then a little bit of lead generate. No, I didn't go through lead generation. I went through presenting and closing.
Okay.
So I did do your objections there in the sales process.
Okay. Have you done any door knocking then yet on your own?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Be proactive about that. Just go door knock. Remember we talked about last time, we said whatever the numbers were, I think it was like 50 to 70 doors per week. Is that what we had said?
Yeah.
Which would, excuse me, it's carbonated kombucha.
Good one.
They're not from
Nice.
deep down. I'm not good at burping. Wait. That's all I got. I got nothing. All right. So, so first and foremost, okay, objections.
Sure.
Let's get serious here for a second, Michael. The
Try.
best defense to handling objections is, what do you think? Guess. What's the best time to handle an objection, do you think?
What do you mean best time?
Just what's the best time and way to handle an objection? It's kind of a trick question.
I guess before they really get to it.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Before it comes up. God, you're smart. Okay. So the best thing is, like, objections, inevitably you're going to get objections pop up. That is just sales. I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't get any objections. However, you really can eliminate objections popping up a lot of the time, a majority of the time, with the approach that you're using. So objection handling really is secondary to mastering the approaches, whether that's a door approach, a referral approach, or a close. Because when you're using things that already work, by default, you're going to be eliminating a lot of the potential objections that you would get. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for example, if you knock on somebody's door and you just say, gosh, there's so many examples. Let's say that you knock on someone's door and you're like, hey, Mrs. Jones, have you had a hail inspection yet? We're doing free inspections out here on Thursday and Friday. And she goes, oh, we didn't have any hail, or we don't have any damage. Thanks. What happened there? How could you have prevented that, do you think?
I guess the best way to prevent that would not even really come up and ask about or talk about the hail. You know, you talk about, like we talked about earlier in the last time, just presenting yourself. You know, and yeah, just kind of talking like, hey, I can come up there and do that for you sometime, but kind of getting around to that, I guess, in a roundabout way.
Well, the objection is what? Their objection was, we don't think we have any damage. They don't have any damage. Okay. So they're saying that as if it's true, because to them that's true. As far as they know, they don't think they have damage, right? Because most people assume if we have damage, we're going to have leaks, or we would have known. Like, wouldn't shingles be missing on my roof and stuff like that? So the objection really is, oh, we don't think we have any damage. So instead, if your approach was something like, knock, 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 hey, Mrs. Jones, I'm really sorry. Not that you'd know her name when you knock on her door, probably, unless you're like stalking her mail. Don't do that. It's against the law. If you're like, knock, 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 hey, I'm really sorry to bother you, but you know Kim and John next door, well, I just got done doing an inspection. There's actually quite a bit of damage on their roof, and you show them. And you say, I found quite a bit of damage on most of the houses out here, except for the ones that are maybe 1 or 2 years old. We didn't really find much on those, but I have to come back out here on Thursday to do some more inspections, because we're assuming if this neighbor has damage and that neighbor has damage, probably a lot of the houses surrounding might have it too. See what I'm saying there? So when you incorporate these things into your approach, you're preventing them from coming up, because you're not going to say that, and then you're not going to show them that there's damage on this house, and this house, and then a homeowner is going to go, oh, yeah, but we didn't get any. Like, that's not going to happen. The only way that would happen is if they already had a roofer over that told them you guys are actually good, right?
Yeah.
So that's one example. Other examples would be like in the close, things that people get stumped on. They'll say, well, can't you just write me a bid? Or I think I want to talk to my insurance agent first, right?
Yep.
Well, how do you prevent those? Well, in my sales presentation, the one that you're learning, it's in there. You'll just study and learn it. If you're following that, nobody is going to ask you for a bid, because we explain how insurance paid versus, or how they used to pay versus how they pay now. We explain depreciation. So they're not asking you for a bid. So a lot of the times, like, if you're getting a specific objection, you can pinpoint where it came from. Because if somebody says to you after your presentation, well, can't you just give me a bid? What did you not do very well?
If I didn't explain to them that, yeah, the process of insurance, how that works.
You missed something, or maybe you didn't take your time on it, or maybe you forgot to say it, or maybe you didn't write it down. So you can almost always, like, you pay attention to the objections you're getting. And here, I'll share an example with you. So when I first started, I already told you I was like just a bumbling retard for like weeks. I just like couldn't, I'm like, why can't I figure this out? Like, I'm a good sales. It was bizarre. And one of the things that I was getting over and over and over, gosh, I'm sick to my stomach thinking about how many deals, easy deals that I lost. But people would end up saying to me, I think I'm just going to talk to my insurance agent first. I think I'd like to talk to my insurance first. So I was getting appointments, like I was doing okay at the door. But when I was like sitting down to do a presentation, I was so confused. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I obviously have to take responsibility for this. I'm doing something wrong. What it ended up being was I was going too ham on the part where I talk about what the insurance companies could do in the sense of it, right? Like if the adjuster is bad or he's grumpy or he just denies it or he has never done, I was overdoing that section. So I was creating mistrust because you have to remember, and I think I said this to you last time, you don't want to play good cop, bad cop too much because if you overdo it, the customer feels like, especially like older people, they literally have had their agent sometimes for like 35 years. Like they bring them fruitcake at Christmas every year. Like they send them a Christmas card. I don't know. So if you're talking smack on their agent or they feel like you are, even though you're not, they're like, okay, well, I've known Jim. He's been bringing me elk meat every fall for 17 years. And I just met you, you punk kid who's talking smack on Jim. Right? So like, that's where I finally was like, okay, so you can examine why would somebody say that? And you kind of go backwards, you find the source, you fix it, and then you prevent that from coming up in the future, right?
Yep.
But that being said, that's all fine and dandy. Preventing objections is ideal. That's what you want to do. And again, let me say this 400 times to you. If you study my door knocking approaches and my sales presentation, you're going to eliminate a lot of those from the jump. However, you're still going to get objections. So the best way to handle objections is really, you've probably heard of this. It's not mine. I can't even take credit for this, but it's a feel, felt, found method. Okay? People's tendency sometimes is when they're like met with an objection, they like their ego gets into it a little bit too much. And so you want to be like, well, no, Mrs. Jones, that's not how it works. And you basically are kind of combative with them. Like you say, no. So the first thing that I would like to teach you is, and this sounds funny, I actually only realized a couple months ago that I do this, but I realized that something that I did all the time, which was so wonderful, was anytime somebody objected to me or they said something that was just completely wrong, I would go, absolutely. Every single time, agree. Okay? Agree every single time. Because they're expecting you. Remember, they understand they're giving you kind of like a no, right?
Yep.
So if you meet it, they're expecting you to kind of give them some resistance. And so when they're saying that and you're like, absolutely, that's exactly right. They're like, oh.
They're confused.
Right? So I'll try to think of a good example that won't like take too long because I know I kind of go off on a roll here. Let's say, for example, you knock on the door or you're doing a sales presentation and the customer says to you, well, I think I'd just like to call my insurance company first. I go, absolutely, Mrs. Jones. And that's actually what we're doing out here is all my inspections are for insurance claims. That's actually the reason that we do these free inspections is so that you know if you even have to bother your insurance company about it. So like you say, absolutely, right? Like you are correct.
Yep.
And that's actually why we do this. So anytime, even if it's the most obnoxious objection in the world, like you might get something that's just so off the wall and you're like, is this person high? Like, why is she saying this to me? So you just agree every single time because what you're doing is, imagine it, gosh, the only way that I can I'm always doing this. The only way that I can demonstrate to you what I mean or what that does is if somebody objects to you and you stop them, you're creating friction.
Yeah.
But if instead, because you're trying to say, no, like over here is the right answer. So stop, you're not going this way. Like over here is the answer. But if you say, absolutely, let me show you what I mean. And then you bring them with you over. You're like not going upstream against them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes complete sense. Yep.
Perfect.
We do the same thing in the restaurant. That's why I'm so good with handling complaints, is because it's not a complaint, it's an objection. If your steak's cooked wrong, I'll just go ahead and take it away. And I do the same thing. Actually, I caught myself saying, sounds good. I'll take that away for you.
Yep. Just, you always agree. And because it's not like an argument. You just, when somebody objects to you, what they're really doing is they're sharing with you their truth at this time. Whatever it is that they're saying, they believe it to be true based on the limited information that they currently have. Okay? So what it really is like sometimes there are salespeople who will say, or like sales teachers that'll say, an objection is really a request for more information. So they need something else from you to help them overcome that objection. So it's agree, yes, but feel, felt, found, agree, and then ask for the order again. Okay?
Okay.
So you'll say, and third-party stories will be your best friend. And if I'm going all over the place here, just stop me and tell me to get a hold of myself. But there's like a million different ways to talk about it. So it kind of goes like this. So if somebody objects to you, you say, absolutely, Mrs. Jones, and I completely understand why you'd be concerned about that. In fact, I was concerned about that in the beginning too. I had questions about that. However, what I found was, so you'll say, I felt the exact same way. And actually, don't even use yourself. Use somebody else. A neighbor, be like, do you know Nancy on the corner? She felt the exact same way because this. Support their concern. Make them feel validated. But what she found was it was better to actually get the roof checked out and file a claim just in case. Because worst case scenario, if you filed a claim and they came out and they denied it because they didn't think it was damaged enough, even if there was a little bit, worst case scenario, if a year down the road it actually does cause leaks, you can go back to your insurance company and say, look, I did report this, but you guys didn't do anything. Now what? So that's why we like to file a claim just in case, and I wouldn't tell you to file a claim if I didn't think that it was reasonably necessary to do so. So do you see how we're, like that's an example. I know I just kind of sprouted that on you, but if somebody were to say, well, I don't really, like if you think it's kind of marginal damage and I don't want to bother my insurance company with it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get it.
Mm-hmm. So just like third-party stories are wonderful because you don't have to, you're directing the attention and the energy away from them so they're not feeling like they're on the spot with an objection and you're not combative with them. So that's a great way to do it too. But that's kind of like the main basis. Now, that being said, that's the formula for all of it. Every single way to handle objection is going to break down to that formula. But then there's different specific word for word things that you would say to handle specific objections, right?
Sure.
So it depends what you're doing. Are you at the kitchen table? Are you on their porch knocking the door, right?
Yep.
So
yeah, I just need to really get out there and do it. So
you do. I could talk to you until you're blue in the face, but until you actually go out there and like experience it and then get put on the spot, pee in your pants, forget who you are, and then have to like go back.
Try and come up with that objection right away. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And the best part too is, and this might be hard to do on the spot, but remember last time I was talking to you about like physically speaking, if you were just like chill, like super chill, cool as a cucumber, if you handle objections in the same way, like one thing that I notice that people do a lot, and they don't know that they're doing it, but they'll like get tensed up if somebody's objecting because they're like, oh, right? Yeah, they're like, blah, blah. So
yeah, you can't be.
Right. Just stay super cool. Like you don't miss a beat. And you're just like, absolutely. And that's exactly why and that's why this neighbor felt the exact same way. But what we found was, right?
So then you can pull the third party story in there and say, well, yeah, I talked to this person down there. As long as you stay cool. Okay.